What's going on, Tar Heel Nation? It is your favorite North Carolinian, Russ, the Tar Heel. And in this huddle, baby, we're going to talk about my general manager, Michael Lombardi, and his recent presser. Now, if you've already seen this, man, I completely understand. I just wanted to go through and give you a couple of my thoughts, man. It is a 27-minute video, basically. So, this is going to be a little bit longer. But if you got some house chores to do or you're outside cutting the grass or something, man, throw your AirPods in and let's think and listen to my guy, Michael Lombardi, and what he's got to say about the University of North Carolina football program. So without further ado, baby, let's get into this bad boy.
Did you have something here? We're not ready for questions yet, but we can start with it. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. And really, this has been, since Coach Belichick and I arrived December 11th, this has been an incredible 60 days with a lot of support and a lot of help from the Carolina community, starting with everybody in the academic office with Bubba and Rick, and of course Lee Roberts, our chancellor. So there's a lot of people that have gone into the work that we've been able to do in the last 60 days that really go unnoticed, and we appreciate every effort. We still have a lot of work to do, but we're looking forward to it. I think the main focus for what we want to deal with is our program is really based on player development.
I like
Coach
it.
Belichick often said, character sets the floor. Talent sets the floor. Character determines the ceiling.
Hey, bro, right there, man. Right stinking there. Talent sets the floor. Character sets the ceiling. And, I haven't listened to this whole thing, but that statement in and of itself, man, just gives you it's a fundamental change in the way that we look at athletes. Carolina has had a plethora of high 4-star, 5-star guys that did not stink and pan out, i.e., Tony Grimes, Keyshawn Silver, Travis Shaw, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I think Travis Shaw is the second highest rated player that Carolina's ever gotten to commit to the University of North Carolina. And where did that lead? Now, I'm not saying that we should completely shy away from all 5-stars. Please do not stink in, get that twisted. We'll talk about that probably here in a little bit. But just the fundamental change in, we can look at a guy's talent and that'll give us his daggone floor. But when we're going to talk about what is a young man's ceiling, that's going to be a character-driven trait. So, I mean, that's music to my stinking ears, man. I want guys that stinking want it. That's what I want. I want guys that want it. Forget the 5-star kid who doesn't have a high motor, dude. I need a guy that stinking wants it, man.
So every player that we bring in, it's really about us developing. And that development comes from their ability to grasp into the system.
Their ability to
I was fortunate enough
grasp
work for
the
Coach
system.
Walsh for many years, and he used to say, the first year will teach you the system, the second year will develop you the skills of the system. Player development is really important. So of all the players that we signed going back to before we got here and to where we are today, it's really about integrating it into a team and developing talent. So that's
Integrated
the
it
journey
into
that
a
lies
team
ahead
and
of us
developing
from this
talent. I
point
like it.
forward.
I like it, Mike.
And I know everybody's going to ask what the expectations are. Our expectations are we're going to get better every day.
I like
That's
it.
what we have to do. That's
I like
what
it,
we're
man.
Prepared to do, and that's all we can control.
That's
So
all we
with
can
that, I'll
control.
open
Get
up
better
the
every day, man. Get better every single day.
Aaron Beard with the Associated Press.
Hello, Aaron.
You mentioned there's a lot of work ahead. You've gone through recruiting and hiring positions, but there was a lot of descriptions in December about almost like a mini NFL model in terms of what you want to build with the program. So I'm curious how much you think you guys have accomplished in terms of infrastructure and those things, and how much more is, or what is the next focus in that regard?
Well, the hardest part was getting all the people together. I mean, it took a
Right.
while to hire the right people and put them in the right positions.
Put them in the
coaching
right
staff,
positions.
which is still ongoing, and we'll have an announcement about that later. But the reality of it is building a personnel department. Hiring people are great, but then those people have to buy into what you're doing and what you believe in and how they're going to evaluate. So
Right. That's a key too. The guys that you're hiring have to buy in and believe on what, you're trying to what you're trying to create. And, I think he alludes to it a little bit later. He's alluded to it in past. Make no mistake about it. This is a head coach run football team, which I stinking love. Because you know why I love that? Because there is no stinking pass in the buck anywhere else, dude. If we're gonna stinking win, guess who we know that we can ultimately go to to celebrate those wins. It's going to be the stinking head ball coach. And if we lose and fail, guess what? Guess where we're going to stink and go? You know what? That's how it should be. The head man is the head man, dude.
That's what it's ongoing, and we're learning more about the people that we've hired. They're learning more about what we're looking for in terms
What
of
we're
talent.
looking for.
And so, like I said, everybody's trying to get better, but to set up the pro department to get it to work seamlessly is going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort on our part.
And I also want to stink a caveat off of it's going to take a lot of time and effort. You know what that insinuates to me? That this is not just a one and done type thing with this staff that's being. I really do, man. I think that a lot of the terminology and the things that are being said would lead one to believe that, you know, for all intents and purposes, barring some kind of a crazy situation, these guys plan to be here for a little bit. So, you know, for all the people that want to, you know, throw some shade over at Carolina for Hyde and Bill Belichick, you need to take some of that right there, put it in your pipe, and then maybe puff on it for a little bit, dude. I think they're going to be here for a while.
Yeah, Chip Alexander from Raleigh. Just a GM in college. You've obviously been in the NFL and now you're in college. In what ways is your role here similar or dissimilar to what it was in pro football? What exactly do you do here as GM?
Well, I had an academic meeting today, so I wouldn't have had that.
It's got to be like the main big thing,
But I
guys.
would have had a different meeting.
Got to worry about the
meeting.
academics.
And so I don't think there's a whole lot of difference in it, in the sense that there's a lot
Not
of
today.
moving parts. There's way more names that I'm dealing with. You know, when you work as the general manager in the NFL, you're dealing with one draft class. You're dealing with one free agent class. And you can prepare for that. Now you're dealing with the 26 class, the 27 class, the 28 class.
That's true. It's even
So there's
more.
A lot more names.
A lot
deal
more
with.
names.
So there's more
Right. I didn't even
volume
think about that.
than it would be in pro football, but the job.
Because in pro football, they just got this upcoming class coming up, you know, and it's like, okay, what are the needs of my team this year? So now not only are you, you know, taking that into consideration, but these 26, 27, even 28 players are getting offers from people, and you have to, you know, you got to kind of project out, you know, like what are my needs going to be, and what are the type of kids that we need to evaluate, and you know, what are the type of kids that fit our system?
Is very similar. You have to accurately predict the future of players' talent and their character, and then
And their
got
character.
to assign a dollar sign to it. And you've got to be able to have in concert the ability to develop the talent from within. So, you know, I think what we learned watching the Super Bowl is the same thing we've learned before watching the Super Bowl, that teams that can control the offensive and defensive line win games. And
Trenches,
so from a
baby.
team building standpoint, that's what we said we were.
And that's hard for me to say as a former skill player, but it all starts in the stinking trenches. And, you know, I think that they've done about as good of a job as they could have coming in late with trying to kind of fortify and build that up.
We're going to do in December. We're going to build a team inside out, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And so part of my job is to maintain that philosophy.
Like it, Mike.
Hey, Michael. Adam Smith with Inside Carolina.
I
Wanted to ask you about like strength and conditioning, off-season strength and conditioning.
Moses Cabrera.
And obviously, it's a vital piece of what you're doing and what that looks like. Maybe the changes you all have wanted to make. What does a pro strength and conditioning off-season program look like, as opposed to maybe what these guys have been doing around here the last couple of years?
Everything we do here is predicated on building a pro team. We consider ourselves the 33rd team.
We are the 33rd team, bro, because everything that they're going to do is going to be basically, you know, going to be like emulating the NFL, the National Football League, which I think is super cool, man. For kids that want to stink and go to the league, you know, come to Carolina, bro.
Because everybody's involved with our program has had some form of aspect in pro football. And Moses, our strength coach, spent a lot of time, 14 years in New England. You know, training is different for football than it is for other sports. You know, you need lower body strength.
Lower body
You need
strength.
Lower body power.
100%.
You need to be able to handle the physical grind of the season. And so our training is conducive to what happens on the field. You know, you have to be able to play with power in your lower body. So you have to train your lower body. And you've got to be able to have the right balance of rest, hydration, and nutrition, which we've been very fortunate to come in here. Our nutritionist, Amber, she's been outstanding You know, she was here before we got here. She's been outstanding in terms of helping the players understand what lies ahead of them. So our program will be one thing that's always been important to Coach Belichick is what happens on the field has to happen in the practice field. You know, practice execution becomes game reality. It's
I like
a sign
it.
that used to hang in the Patriots facility. And that's the same thing in the strength room. We're gonna do things that are gonna translate to the field.
Andrew Jones, Tar Heel Illustrated. A couple prongs to the question here with respect to recruiting and scouting the high school players. The footprint looks like it's pretty much everywhere for you guys. A lot of offers in California. You got some commitments.
Crazy,
there.
bro.
New Jersey going up even. There was a couple of kids from Massachusetts. Your room, which is a much larger room than it was previously, how do you guys, what is the process in scouting kids all over the place? And when you say player development, you're offering a lot of kids that maybe haven't gotten as much attention from other schools. So what is the vetting process that gets you to California and some of these other places offering kids that previously were nowhere near the radar for Carolina?
Well, the first part of your question about we've offered kids that didn't have, I think we believe in our eyes. You know, Brett Auerbach has a great
Don't
saying,
care.
we get our information
Don't care what
from
any of
looking,
this
not
other
from
stuff is,
talking.
bro.
And so I think if you trust your eyes and you evaluate players, it doesn't really matter if some other school wants them. All I know is from my 35 years or more in the National Football League, I've drafted players that weren't recruited out of high school.
I like it, bro.
I've drafted players that had no scholarship offers coming out of high school.
I like it.
So
Diamonds in the rough.
There's always going to be a lot of guys that get missed, and I think you have to trust your instincts and trust your eyes.
I like it.
Our footprint, I'm fortunate. I work for a great university. I mean, this is one of the top universities in America.
In America.
It's harder to get into school for an out-of-state person than it is to get into Yale or Harvard. They don't take very many. The enrollment's small. So we have a great brand. I mean,
Yes,
have
we
this
do.
UNC logo is worldwide, so we shouldn't limit
Worldwide.
ourselves. You know, I think that we can walk into any school and say, we're North Carolina. We have the greatest coach in the history of football, and we have a great university.
Dude, that's stinking hard, man. I love it. I love it. Like, why sell yourself short? And I know that there's like a lot of talk about, you know, wanting to kind of, stay local and, you know, all those things because that's kind of the old school way of doing things. But like he said, we should be able to walk into any school in the entire country and say, we're North Carolina, you know, because it is a national brand. This is a different type of brand than, you know, a lot of other schools have. This is a worldwide known brand. And so why subject yourself to, you know, saying that, oh, I think that, you know, we can't reach out that way or over here because, you know, no, we're North Carolina, bro. And I like that. I like that stinking, that mentality. I like that, that confidence. It exudes confidence, bro.
Come
I like
play
it.
for us. I think it's a powerful message. And so why should we limit ourselves to just a smaller footprint? And it allows you to
We got
look
the
all over
greatest coach
country
of all
for the
time.
players that fit you. So
Yeah.
we're going to be we're going to be a national program, and we're not going to back down.
We're gonna be a
to
national
some other
program.
programs because we're in North Carolina. We'll stand on any firm ground against anyone.
I like it. I like it, Mike.
Pat Walter from WRAL here. How do you guys go about assembling the group of quarterbacks that you have right now? And do you think that the week one starter is currently on the roster, or is there still more work to do?
I can't even imagine week one. I'm trying to get through week 5 of the off season. I think you know, everything comes down to everything matters, right? So how we lift weights matters. How we prepare matters. How we go to class matters. How we handle our nutrition matters. So to understand how that all comes to fruition really won't happen until we start accumulating all the things that matter. And guess what? Everything matters. So, you know, I think we've got some really good players that are working hard that we've brought in. Some of them aren't here yet. Some of them are injured. And everybody's going to get a fair opportunity. Coach Belichick and I have always believed in going back to the Bill Walsh theory. It doesn't matter where you get picked. It matters how you play. It really matters how you play at the end of the day. That's
Right.
all that matters.
100%. And even the question, like, you know, is the current QB1 on the roster right now? I would say 100%. You know, God forbid, you know, somebody gets injured or anything, and we have a Jacoby Criswell type situation again, where he comes in after, you know, his spring ball and then he's behind the power curve. I just don't imagine that happening. I would think that one of the freshmen or Ryan Brown will be QB1 in week 1. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Brian Murphy with WRL as well, right here. How much do you envision yourself being the spokesperson for this program compared to Coach Belichick, doing pregame, postgame, week of interviews, or do you think that's going to be a role that you handle or someone else handles?
That's actually a legitimate, interesting question. Like, are we going to get Bill Belichick doing interviews, or is it just going to be or not obviously, but is it always going to be Michael Lombardi? That's actually an interesting question.
Well, I think this program is built on the vision and the identity of the greatest coach of all time.
Right.
And so, I'm fortunate enough to have worked for him for a long time, but philosophically, we come from the same school, and that school is about building a team inside out. That school is about physical and mental toughness. That school's about dependable and hardworking players. So who's doing the messaging it's his message, and I think he's going to handle a lot of that. Obviously, he's going to meet with you guys on a regular basis, I'm
Okay.
sure, whatever the
So we
schedule
are
is
going to
during the
get
season.
Bill. We're
But,
going to get
My
Coach.
job is to just adhere to what the program believes in. I'm not the spokesman. I represent what we need to do.
Michael, Brendan Marks from The Athletic.
Yeah.
You mentioned the first 60 or some odd days you guys have been here, be it recruiting, be it the academic side, be it whatever it is. What has been the most surprising part of this whole process for you and Coach Belichick?
First of all, I think the people in Chapel Hill are incredibly friendly.
Amen,
I
brother.
don't say that slightly. I know I'm a New Jersey guy and we're used to being treated rudely, but
Welcome to the South, my friend.
And nobody's honked a horn at me, which is rare. So I think to me, it's just been the gracious, really the openness that people have showed here. Not that that's surprising, it's just really kind of humbling, and I think that there's a lot of pride in this program, and there's a lot of pride
Hell
in
yeah.
this university, and I think our job is to bring it out.
Right.
And I
Let's
think
take
what
it
we
go,
have to
baby.
do is we have to honor those who've come before us. These screens here that talk about the former players that have been here, that's not enough.
I agree.
They deserve more than a screen.
I
They
agree.
deserve way more than that, because we've had so many great players.
So
here.
many great players
I think
come
we're
through
gonna have
UNC,
to
dude.
Pay really more respect to the greatness of this program
Yes,
from a football
man.
standpoint.
Honor
We
'em.
haven't won a ACC since 1980. We're all aware of that. But man, we've had a lot of good players, and
Lot of good
they
players.
deserve to be in this hallway. They deserve to have the spotlight. So I think in terms of what's been the hardest part is trying to bring out those alumni, bring them back. It's a beautiful facility, but it's not a home for the older players.
And we need to make it a home for the older players. The older players.
Another college.
Bring 'em home, baby.
Recently said that a lot of their job is reaching out to fans, reaching out to members of the community, facilitating conversations with them to build support from the ground up. Is that part of the process for you in these first 60 days? And if so, what does that process look like?
Well, look, I think leadership's about, the first rule of leadership is called management of attention. That means you have a plan. And the only way you can have a plan the only way you can lead people is to explain the plan. That's the job of any football team, right? I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I hate the process, despise it with a passion. Thought it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. We're going to lose to win. It didn't work out, by the way. I just want to be on record as saying that. But what I learned from that was, as stupid as it was, that people bought into it because they explained it. And so part of our job is to explain who we are and what we're doing. That's what the fans want to know.
Right.
And they want to know what their program is, because they want to stand next to somebody and say, they're building this at North Carolina. And they want to say it with authority. And
With
so
authority.
That's my job. That's Coach Belichick's job, is to keep echoing those comments. And
Okay.
I think once you get people to buy into your plan and you explain it, the second area of leadership is called management of meaning, you get people to follow you.
I'm down.
Rob Baxley, Fable Observer. Have you guys mapped out a
Fable
spring
Observer in
schedule
here.
yet as far as a spring game? And then walk me through a typical day for you.
We've kind of looked at a spring schedule. A lot of it's going to be determined on recruiting. I mean, we'll eventually make an announcement on the spring, what we're going to do spring-wise, but a lot of it will be tied to, we want the players to come visit our campus when we're practicing, because I think we have a unique way of practicing. And of course, they can watch a coaching staff that's filled with a lot of pro coaches, but also watch a guy who's won 8 Super Bowls coach a team around him. So,
Right.
I mean, my day is spent really on player evaluation, understanding. Right now we're building I call it a draft board because my brain's locked that way, but
Stuck in the
building a
NFL.
board so that we can identify who we want to sign, who we want to go after. And then a lot of it is part of it is we have to get everybody in unison. You're dealing with a lot of players, a lot of names, and who's contacting the players. I think the other part of this university that's been remarkable is because you're talking to somebody who's never been in college football since 1981, so compliance has been incredibly valuable to me because I am a walking disaster if I don't have compliance.
Compliance,
right?
yeah,
And so
man.
they've been
I'm
very
sure that's a
helpful, and they've
new-
been very good at telling me what we can and can't do because
Right.
we're not going to violate any rules, but we
Right.
got to know what they are.
Got to know what the
So,
rules are, bro.
My day is pretty much spent like it was in the
Not only so you don't violate the rules, you got to know what the rules are so you know how far you can push things as well, right? You need to take every advantage possible. You know, you need to take every stinking advantage possible, dude. So you got to know not to violate while simultaneously knowing so you know how far you can push the stinking boundary as well.
NFL. Get here early, watch tape, study players, write reports.
Showbiz Swanson with the Raleigh News Observer. Obviously, you guys had a very short runway for the past transfer portal window. How important do you see this upcoming spring portal window for you guys in terms of building the roster?
Well, I think every time you can acquire more talent is an important window. I think we have obviously more time to prepare for it.
Be interesting to see
because
what they do in that 10
wouldn't have
days
just gotten
too.
Thrown right into it. So I think a lot of
Post-spring.
scouting is preparation. We won't know the names who are in the portal, but we'll have a better idea about what it takes to be in the portal and who could possibly enter, and then have an ability to evaluate them and really get things. The way you want to run a program isn't to be reactive. Al Davis used to say
Right.
this all the time to me. The secret to all organization the secret to any great organization lies in the ability to anticipate problems, not react. And I think when we got in here, we were reacting to the portal. And now we can anticipate the portal, which certainly will help us.
I like it. I like it.
Michael, Tommy Ashley, Inside Carolina, obviously heavy on recruiting and talent acquisition. What has it been like with the current players? You mentioned building a draft board with the recruits. Are you guys starting from scratch with who's already here?
Yeah, I think to me, that's been the most rewarding thing is to get players to come in and buy into the system, right? Because we are, we talk about who we've signed, but we are one team. It's not like this signing class and some others. We're all one team, and I
Right.
think we have to really do a good job of showing our players kind of what to expect and how the program is going to be different than it was in the past. And again, every program is different when you make a coaching change. So the players have been really receptive. I think that they've been great at taking the information in, and when coach is able to get in front of them at our team meetings and talk about football and what it takes.
Gosh, I
and what
wish
we
I could be a
expect from
stinking
them, I think
fly
they've
on the
been really
wall,
good, and I
dude.
think they've responded. Our off-season workouts have been good. The players want to be coached. I think one thing you learn about players, whether it's high school, college, or pro, players want to improve. And your job as a coach, whether you're 18 years old as a coach or whether you're 85 like Tom Moore, is if you can make the player better, players will listen. So our job is to make them better.
Caroline Rose from the Daily Tar-Heel. As you've gotten kind of accustomed to this job and the demands of what this program means, what has been revealed to you about why it was important to have a GM for this program?
Well, you're asking me to justify why they hired me. I don't know. I think, look, football's a challenge.
Why is your job important?
For one person, I think Coach Belichick would be better to speak about this, but, there's a lot of things that go into building a team, and there's a lot of areas. And sometimes when money's involved, because let's be honest, money's involved now.
Yep.
You have to have a subjective way of determining how to handle the money and how to place a value on it. And you have to remove bias, right? I think that's the biggest challenge in pro football is there's bias built in internally in terms of I want this player, I want that player. And somebody has to be the voice of saying, well, we can find an alternative here and maybe we can't. So I think team building requires more than just one person.
Right.
In the day when I first
And
started,
we're seeing that on the
it didn't
basketball
because we
side of
didn't have
things.
much player movement, much volatility. Now there is in
Yeah.
all levels.
I like
Jerry
Bill
Miles
just
all
having to
way with
focus on the
Inside
coaching
Carolina. Nice to meet
aspect.
you. One question that I have for you, you talked earlier about bringing in, you know, the different coaches and having them kind of buy into what what Belichick is trying to, you know, establish as far as the culture. I wanted to ask about like the specific assigning of roles and kind of, you know, communicating that to some of the players as far as which coaches, you know, along with, you know, certain positions. Just what is the process of delegating, you know, specific, I guess, roles on staff, you know, to those guys? Is it more based on their previous experiences? Is it based on just like how did you guys go about delegating that?
I mean, we're a head coach run program. And
Bro, right there. Right there is the main thing that everybody needs to understand. We are a head coach run program, and everybody underneath Bill will obviously, to a certain extent, with their own spin, they will conduct the job in a way that, you know, furthers the goals not of that individual coach, but of Bill Belichick's idea of where the football team needs to go.
I don't mean that in any disrespect to our assistant coaches, but our head coach is the philosophy of the organization.
Right.
That's the way it
Which
was.
is fantastic because, like I've told you guys 100 times before, one of the things that started to bug me towards the end of the Mac Brown era was the constant, you know, hey, you're gonna have to ask him, you're gonna have to ask him why he did this or why he did this, and it's like, well, if I'm just gonna ask him why he did this, like, I need you to justify your position, coach. You know, like, this is why it's so important to have somebody that you can go to. Why are we succeeding? It's because of you. Why are we stinking failing? It's because of you.
When he came to Cleveland in 1991 and when he was in New England, I mean, we are always going to be built on a philosophical belief, and people that work within that philosophy execute that program and execute that plan in their own style, in their own way.
Okay.
You know, Charlie Weiss was different than Josh McDaniels. Romeo Crennel is different than Matt Patricia. You know, Nick Saban was different than some other coaches we had on the staff. But everybody that works on those staffs that we've had have all philosophically believed in what Bill wanted the team to look like. Because at the end of the day, football teams are who you want them to look like, right? If you want to be a tall team, you draft tall players. You want to be a fat team, you draft fat players. You know, it just goes that way. So that comes from the head coach. And so it's all our jobs is to execute the plan. And so your question is based, the coaches will have their ability to influence it, but it'll all be driven off of philosophy that's been set in stone.
Right. By the head coach. The CEO.
Michael, you have talked about the philosophy of building a program from inside out. What's the backstory on how that philosophy came about, and how has that manifested itself with what you and Bill have done together for so many years?
You know, the great thing about football is you can study winning on any level, and there's a formula for why teams win and why teams lose. And if you pay close attention to it, it's not that difficult. Football, going back to when Lombardi coached the Packers in the 60s to when, you know, Bill coached the Giants or Bill Walsh coached the 49ers, it's about who wins the line, who controls the game. You know, there's always two elements in a football game.
Yeah, man.
Who's in the lead and who's in control. On Sunday,
What
it
killed
was
us
pretty
last
clear
year.
the Eagles were in the lead and in control. There was really no dispute. But if you go back to the 28-3 game against Atlanta was in the lead, but not necessarily in control. So the only way you can get in control of the game is through the offensive and defensive lines. And so if you believe that philosophy, that's building the team inside out, from the lines to the receivers. And I've been influenced before I met Coach Belichick by Coach Walsh. When we traded for Jerry Rice, we had the 28th pick in the draft, and we had just won a Super Bowl. Freddie Solomon was our best receiver on the team. Nobody remembers poor Freddie, passed away, but was a great receiver along with Dwight Clark. And Coach Walsh walked in and told me to write a project. He asked me to write a report on 3 players, Al Toon, Eddie Brown, and Jerry Rice. And he said to me, when he asked me to write that report, he said, we are now finally in a position to go get a big-time receiver because the team's really good around him. And I asked him, I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, we can get the ball to a great player now because we're good in both lines. And that's
Interesting,
impacted me
bro.
my whole life. And so when every time now we're in the mock draft season, and on TV, you'll see 42 receivers going in the first round as if everybody forgot about how the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
Last 3, let's go.
Interesting philosophy, man, but it's smart.
I apologize, you might have answered this question before I walked in a minute late. What is the biggest unknown between developing, recruiting college players, NFL and high school players to play?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the character of the player.
The character of the
If
player.
the player has the character and the will to want to be a great player, he'll reach his level. You know, one of the things that the Navy has always done.
I love
is
it,
they've
dude.
spent over $500 million trying to find out
I
who
was
can make the
thinking,
Navy SEAL program.
I love the
They
constant
spent $500 million
references to the
on it.
military,
They
dude.
end up with 175.
Now, if you're just Joe Schmo like me, prior military or something, people will say there's no correlation between football and the military or football and this. No, there is a direct correlation with the type of individual you need to be successful on both fronts. Obviously, one is real life and one is a game. However, I love, the constant talking about, and I'm an Army guy, but talking about the Navy, just the military in general and that kind of mindset, bro. I love it.
Candidates to join Buds, and they end up with 30 at the end of the time, maybe 25. What they can't figure out, and we spent a lot of time talking to Navy SEAL, what they can't figure out is who can do it every day. Who can do the volume every day? They'll tell you at the Navy SEALs program, who's ever first in line the first day never makes it.
Whoever's first in line the first day never makes it.
Runs the fastest never makes it.
Whoever runs the fastest never makes it, because that doesn't necessarily make you a stinking dog, bro. Yeah, speed kills. But when stinking push comes to shove and your back is against the wall, that's where you stinking find out the character of the player.
It's the one who kind of can do it every day. And it's the same thing in recruiting. We can never really get a true, accurate portrayal of the heart.
Ooh-wee, dude, this is some deep philosophical stuff. And once again, dude, I love it, man, because this is looking further than, height, wingspan, 40 time, vert. Listen, all those are important. All those are extremely important, but there is a premium that should be placed on the measure of one's heart.
And the character of how important it is to the player.
And how important it is to the player, bro. That's so important. Do you care, bro? Do you stinking want it? Are you willing to scratch and claw for this thing?
And that's the variable that we're always trying to find out. That's what we're always trying to ask questions. That's why we're always looking at the player and asking, what's the most important thing? What obstacles have they overcome to get to where they have to go? Because we can't determine who can handle the volume. You can watch 5 clips on a player and say, that guy's great. But we have to make him better than he is, and does he have the will to be better? That's the hard thing to judge, whether it's pro football or college.
True, man. You got to put somebody through the actual fire in order to even come close to gauging that.
Are you allocating based on sort of NFL percentages? And how do you know how much money you actually...
I mean, it is. It's like somebody that watches a war movie or something, or they watch a body camera from a police and they say, I would have done this and this and this. Or you have no idea what you would have done unless you were actually put through the stinking fire. You know what I mean? And so he's insinuating here that it's hard to gauge the stinking heart, and it is. But that should be the thing that we're looking for the most, man. Character and heart, bro. That's how you change the culture.
Well, I mean, we kind of have a collective, so we know what's in the collective. But in any system, you have to have any monetary value. You have to have a system, right? And so if you're a starter on the team, there's going to be a certain value placed on what level of starter you are. That's why you have to have a grading system. You just can't arbitrarily say, I like this guy, I like that guy. We're not picking fruit here. You have to have a grading system. And so when the grade reflects what you pay, it's an amazing thing. Everybody says, this guy's a first rounder, or this guy's a second rounder. Well, that's insignificant. A first rounder makes X and a second rounder makes Y. So what you're doing is valuing the player right? When you use those terms, when they do it on television, they don't value the player because it's not their money. But when you're picking in real life, you're saying, I'm going to give this guy a guaranteed contract for 5 years. He's worth X. Is that talent worth that? It's the same thing you're doing in high school on a lower level. So you have to be able to do that. You have to say this guy, so if a starter, he starts for 3 years on your program, he's going to make significant money. If a guy starts 1 year, he's going to make a little bit. The next year, he's got to prove himself again. Because every year, every player could leave.
I like it.
And so you have to have some kind of way, or else you have anarchy. You don't have any system.
Right.
And that's why you have to have a grading system. That's why you have to grade your
I like
players
it.
every single day. You have
I
to
like
grade
it.
every.
Hey, you know what? He said, we're going to give you some money, bro. If you want to get more money, guess what you got to do? Stick and prove yourself. It's there. It's there for you to take it. There for you to take it. But you're going to earn it. Hey, man, respect. And for any kid that just wants a stinking guarantee and you don't want to earn it, I don't know. Maybe you're not what we're looking for.
Players, so you know what you're losing and what you have to expect to get back.
Aaron Beard with the AD again, and that leads right into what I wanted to ask you of. A lot of what you're talking about, like your eye, trust your eyes, and all these things carry over no matter what level of football you're at. You dealt with collective bargaining and salary caps at the NFL. It was far more structured than what college has been. Sort of this, there's revenue sharing coming, but everything has just sort of been kind of fly by the seat of the pants across college. Is it really comparable, or is it significantly different, that part of the equation when you're dealing with money in such a weird environment?
So I think this, what we're dealing with now, reminds me of a time when we had this thing in the NFL, probably before most of you, we had a thing called Plan B. I don't know what Plan A was, but it was called Plan B. And you froze 37 players off your roster, and then everybody else on your roster was a free agent. And so there's an element of the portal that's like Plan B. It was kind of chaotic. There was a long time in the NFL where nobody was sharing information. It was against the CBA. You couldn't do it. Today, you can go on NFL.org and you can see everybody's contracts, the agents have it and all that. So it was a little bit wilder time back then, and I'm old enough to remember that. So I think it's similar to that. So there's an element of Plan B that's in the portal, and there's an element of just true free agency that's in the portal. You know, does the guy really have this offer? Doesn't he not have the offer? And you got to make it. But again, it comes back to the philosophy, right? If you believe in something and you want to improve in that area, you're going to put your money where your mouth is. It won't be hard to figure out where we want to put. I mean, we're going to sign defensive and offensive linemen. I mean, we're going to put our money where our mouth is.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I like it, man. I stinking like it, dude. And the reason that I wanted to stink and do this one is, goodness gracious, dude, wrong stinking button. The reason that I wanted to stink in, just kind of go over this real quick is because I cannot express to you guys enough how elated I am that we have not only Bill Belichick as a head coach, but Michael Lombardi as a general manager, man, because you're seeing firsthand what it looks like to actually have a plan in place, to have a system in which you grade personnel. How are you going to utilize the funds that you've been given? And what kind of players are you looking for? And we've already seen a lot of people have kind of had a little bad taste in their mouth to a certain extent because Carolina hasn't necessarily recruited, 11th, 12th, 16th in the country, maybe like Mac Brown initially. I do think that those things will come, especially when the nation sees what he's able to do with the individuals that he's been able to draft here this year, which there are still some holes on this team. But just to see an actual system in place, that has been successful in other as far as the National Football League is concerned. Michael Lombardi, Bill Belichick have had success doing similar things at that level, and college football has become NFL light. It pleases me greatly, man, to see that they're putting a premium on character, heart. How much do you want this? Do you actually want to be at this university? Are you willing to scratch and crawl, to the finish line if necessary? Are you willing to earn your stinking keep as opposed to just being given, X, Y, and Z? And I'm sure that there's a lot of talented kids that Carolina is going to miss on with this philosophy. And you know what? It might not even be a bad thing. Be the number one kid in the nation, dude, and you don't have the right stinking character or heart. Maybe you're not what we want. Maybe we want, the number whatever player in the nation who is going to literally lay it on the stinking line night in and night out because he's playing for something, bigger than just himself. Obviously, there's a selfish component to just about everybody, right? But it pleases me so much, man. We talk about changing the culture of Carolina football, dude. The type of kids that they're looking at and just the system that's in place in general, man. I mean, I could not be more excited, man, about what these guys are bringing to the table, man. And I can't wait to see the product on the field. It may take some time. It very well may. But I firmly believe that the end result will be worth it. And I'm excited about it. So you guys let me know what you think down in the comment section, man. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel, man. And if you like kind of, a little bit longer form content like this, do me a favor, man. Let me know down in the comment section so I can make it happen for you guys. And yeah, man. Michael Lombardi, dude. That's my stinking general manager. Great day to be a Tar Heel, baby. We'll catch you on the next one, Tar Heel Nation.